Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting here in the Pahiatua chamber, and welcome to anyone who will be in the recording offline. Could I now ask Councillor Tawaka to open us up with
Tēnā tātou katoa, kia mai. Tūtawa mai runa, tūtawa mai rahu. Tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho. Kia tau ai te marutu, te mariora kia tātou. Haumi e hui e, tāi here.
Thank you, Councillor Tawaka. We now move into a special part of the meeting where I will shortly be inviting up Councillor Irina Petty-Weber to make and attest her declaration. So I'll ask Councillor Petty-Weber to come to the front, please.
He mea tau aki tēnei e ahau. E Irina Louise Aroha Petty-Weber. Ki te pore pono me te tōkiki. E tauaki ana au ka mahi au a whakatutuki au e nā kaha. E nā mana me nā haupapa. He te nā arotau o te rohe o Tamaki Nui Aroa. Ki te tautanga hoki o oku, huki nā, me aku whakataunga e tau ana I rotu I au a. E tau ana I rongo I au he nima o te kaunihira o rohu o rohi o Tamaki Nui Aroa. Mo te Local Government Act 2002, me te Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, no e taha atu turi. He tau aki tēnei e te kau māroa e nā rā whina arangi e tau 2025.
Congratulations. So, welcome. Congratulations again, Councillor, and it's nice that as a team we are smooth. With that, I will move to apologies. I have one apology from Councillor Amboy. Is there any other apologies for early departure? Appears to be none. Could I have someone please move Councillor Amboy's apology, Deputy Mayor Ward's and Councillor Johns? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. I haven't been notified of any public forum. There appears to be none. Is there any notifications of items not on the agenda? Appears to be none. Is there any declarations of conflicts of interest in relation to today's meeting? Appears to be none. We will now move into the minutes of our last meeting, which starts on page 5 of your agenda. This is a meeting held on the 30th of October, our first triennial meeting. Everyone will have received a copy of that. Is there any corrections to those minutes? Appears to be none. There's a recommendation there that the minutes of the first triennial council meeting held on the 30th of October 2025 be confirmed as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Could I have someone move that? Councillor Paulett, Councillor Naylor. Is there any discussion? Take the vote. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. We now move on to our first report, which is on page 11, which is the adoption of the committee structure in terms of reference, which will be for the Audit and Risk Committee. Before I hand over to the governance manager, I just want to make a couple of comments on this paper. These committees are an important part of our governance structure. They will look a little bit different to our last term, but they allow us to focus on areas of council business and areas that we have heard from our community. We are looking at our committees. We are also looking at portfolio areas, and I'll come back to that in a second. So I have an addition to that, potential addition of councillors' agreements. It is also important to say that there will be further appointments to be made. So further appointments will be to our community boards and community committees. And then there are some appointments to regional groups as well. So some discussion about that. Moving to the portfolio area, I have one suggested addition to the portfolios, and that is in the rural portfolio area. Currently, the recommendation is to have Councillor Wards and Councillor Kennedy sitting on that portfolio. I would also like to add Councillor Corlett to that. Councillor Corlett has expressed an interest, and I actually think it is a really important area, considering that approximately 50% of our district are rural, and I believe that we do have a lot of work to do in that space. So we can discuss that as we jump in if needed. Ellie, is there anything that you would like to add into this report?
Just taking questions.
Yes. Is there any questions? Yes, to be done. Could I please get someone to move the recommendations 1.1 down to 1.4, Councillor Johns, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Is there any further discussion? Repeats to be. I'll take the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. We have a committee structure. Now I'd like to move us to item 9.2, which is the remuneration of elected members 25-26 on page 19. I'll hand over to our governance manager.
Thank you, Ms. I've taken the full as read. Just want to highlight that once council has made its recommendation, I need to get more recommendation into the remuneration authority, and the timeline for that is getting it to them by this Friday so that they can get it into their processes before Christmas this year. And then once it's been through their process, and then we can backdate it to the day it came into effect. But if we miss this Friday's cut off, it will be March next year that the next opportunity is to do that.
Thank you for that. I do just want to add a couple of very, very quick comments when it comes to this paper, particularly for the benefit of people that may be watching the recording of this afterwards. Remuneration for elected members is set independently by the Remuneration Authority. Along with that, there is a pool that is allocated to each council that must be used. This is an exercise to go through a process, meeting our statutory obligations to use that pool. So that's why we are going through this. Is there any questions on the report? Is to be none. Could I please get someone to move recommendations 1.1 and 1.2? Councillor Naylor, seconded by Councillor Corlett. Is there any further discussion? Appears to be none. I'll take the vote. All those in favour say aye. Against? The motion is carried. We now move to page 27, item 9.3. This is the elected members' allowance and expense reimbursement policy 2025 to 28. I'll hand over to the Manager of Democracy Services, Ellie.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Again, I'll take the report as read. One thing that I do need to draw your attention to is that the funding for any allowances and expense reimbursement doesn't come from within the pool that is set by the Remuneration Authority. It's rate funded, so just need to bear that in mind. It's in addition to what we rate for your salaries. And the determination from the Remuneration Authority sets out what we're allowed to include within the expense and reimbursement policy. Anything that you may wish to put in that's not already in the determination would be at the discretion of the Remuneration Authority. Would need to seek their permission, because their process is that if no payments can be made, that could be seen to be like an additional salary for elected members. But happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Ellie. I'll just make a couple of quick comments here as well. And this is an item that we can have some back and forth discussion on. One thing that I would like to point out, most of these, or a lot of these, won't apply to me in my role, but I did serve in the last 3 years, so maybe can add some context. If you have a look at page 28, and item 4.3, it talks to what the last triennium expense policy included. There are a few things in there, particularly with the technology allowances that the previous council decided not to include. Internet being one of them, reimbursement for a tablet. The discussion for context for new members around that was every councillor is provided with a tablet or a laptop, and that is also internet enabled. So you still have that ability. So that is already provided by council. So I'd like some consideration given to that as well. What I think we might do is open this up to questions, but what I would encourage you to do, if there is any suggestions or amendments that you would like, to flag those. I would try and keep a note of those, and then we'll see if we can come up with a final recommendation before we go. So opening up with Councillor John.
Thanks, there, Scott. Ellie, I take it you'll provide us with the forms for monthly completion.
Once you have agreed this, because it depends on what you agree at this meeting as to what goes into the forms.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Is there any other questions or comments? How do people feel, going back to my comment of 4.3, of what was available to claim for in the last training? Councillor Tamaka.
I personally don't think that's necessary for me and for what I do, with provided that we have these. And if it is any other taxpayers, ratepayers money, sorry, yeah, I just don't think, for me personally and for me to function, that I will need any of that with this device.
Councillor Naylor.
The only thing that I can see on there that I could use would be the printer.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it is handy to print stuff out. And ink isn't cheap. But certainly, sometimes just to be able to print out the odd page here and there rather than having to get printed copies of everything from council.
Sure.
I can see some advantage in that. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Johns.
No, it's the same for the, yeah, thanks. I also see there's no mention of a liquor allowance.
No. I haven't written that down. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Paul.
Thanks for that, Scott. Only around kilometres, for me, it's obviously a killer drag on. And like we talked about with wanting to do more online meetings that I can attend that way if it's not critical that I'm there. So taking that into account, but I'm comfortable with the rest of the items on there. But I don't have any intent to spend anything on technology in that regards.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, just going through them individually, like so what you're saying. Personal computer will be out, right, allowance, this is what, just to make sure I'm right.
Yep.
The printer's in,
That's a decision for us to make.
yeah, but that's what's on the table. The mobile phone is in,
That's a decision to make.
so I would question. Look, and then the use of the consumer, what was the definition?
It's a definition as to what those basically consumables would be, but it could be things like that.
That could be it. Question mark. Now the internet connection, I'm on Starlink. Where I am.
Yep.
So that's satellite. Yeah. So that's something. So not to be two. Okay.
Just sorry, 1 second.
And the mobile connection, same deal.
That's written.
Sorry, I just thought that I had that it needs to mobile data if you're in an area. And I just don't think the internet is valid.
In the last triennium, that wasn't included. So was it? That's all it was.
Thanks, Lee Scott. I think the point is that the way it's set out and allows flexibility of individual needs. A lot of us around the table didn't apply or send in a reimbursement for most of those. It just meant that it was in there if it was required, but already we've had some indications that I won't be applying for it. I mean, the last the only one I utilised was the mobile allowance. So in use, but recognising that everyone has slightly different setup, and that's why the fact.
Absolutely. So just to make a couple of quick comments and then we'll break with some resolution. I'm happy for us to put this to a vote as it stands. One thing I would like to, I suppose, remind elected members is any claims are of choice. Any claims are also discoverable through the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act. So people need to stand by their claims. Are we happy if I could just start?
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Can I just ask, are we talking about the childcare allowance in home security as well?
That is all part of it.
Are we voting as a package or as an individual?
So feel free.
I mean, in my personal, circumstances, I won't be doing childcare or home security.
Sorry, Councillor Naylor, sorry.
I already have home security and I don't have little children, so those won't be something that I would be.
To clarify
Yeah.
that part, these are not automatic allowances, they would have to be, they would have to be requested. So you'd have to apply for those if your circumstances allow. Also remembering that there is some strong criteria around whether you can avail yourselves of either childcare being one. There's some quite strict criteria around that. And the personal home security allowance, there are some very, very strong requirements around that as well. So that does not mean with these that automatically elected members will be issued with those allowances.
Yeah, there would have to be a security assessment done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think
Councillor Naylor.
So.
Are we happy? Could I just get a indication for us to move recommendation 1 and 2, 1.1 as it stands? Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Sharon. Moved, seconded by Councillor Corlett. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Johns.
Yes, with regard to home visitor, are we, that doesn't include that, but
It does. It's included in there. In the policy, page 39, of the original. And that is, the policy is what we voted on, Councillor Johns. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Pettigrew.
Sorry, so we're taking the policy as it is, but we're not taking anything out of it that we don't think needs to be in there?
Correct at this point. So if there's disagreement on that, I'm happy for someone to move the policy with amendment. That we already do have a mover and a seconder, but you could look to amend that if you like.
I just think there's quite a few extra things in here that we didn't have last year, and they're cost could cost quite a bit of money.
Yeah, what do you want to optimise? What would you like to see?
So I was thinking the childcare is $7,500.
That was in the last.
It was on the last one. I thought we had
And the one.
both on there.
Yeah, no, it was on the last time was included there. I don't think anyone availed themselves of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And was there anything else, Councillor?
No, that's all right.
And I think this is the point that this is, and Deputy Mayor Ward's articulated this. This policy gives some flexibility for individual needs. Every elected member must be accountable for what they apply for. And that is an important part of transparency. So every elected member must be accountable for what they choose to put in a form. Okay. Is there any further discussion? I'll put the vote as it stands. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour say aye. Against? Motion is carried. We now move to item 9.4, which is the adoption of the meeting schedule. Before I hand over to the Manager of Democracy Services, a couple of quick comments on this. We have had some early discussions about the dates and times of our meetings, and I still want to have a fulsome conversation about that to ensure that our meeting schedule works effectively for elected members. My view, my personal view, is that we keep our current schedule generally of a Wednesday until the end of the year. The reason for that is it allows particularly newer elected members to see how Wednesday works for their schedule before we upend everything. At the moment, you don't know what you don't know once we add in committee meetings and other parts. Hence why I agreed with Ali for the recommendation to be as written. That will only be up until the end of this year. So I'll hand over to Manager of Democracy Services for any comments.
Thank you, Mr. The intention would be to bring, once you've had those further conversations about meeting dates and times, and regularly that a paper comes for your December meeting to get agreement for the scheduled meetings for the 2026 calendar year. That would also incorporate the decisions made by each of our community boards for their meetings. But Ahuna has chosen the first Monday of every second month for their meetings. So Danny Burke, Community Board, will be having that conversation at their meeting this coming Monday. And so the employer will have the chairperson for risk and assurance has also set the meeting dates for their quarterly meetings, which are on Tuesday. Everything else is yet to be decided, and that depends on conversations that you have.
That was the recommendation.
Before we move to that, Councillor Johns, thank you for that. Is there any questions on this paper? Councillor Nail.
A comment, I think, knowing certainty.
Councillor Nail, we'll do comments once we have the paper moved. So moved by Councillor Johns. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Petty Weber. And now we'll open up the discussion. Councillor Nail.
Having certainty on a, on a particular day makes a lot of sense to me. Wednesday personally suits me really well.
That's
And so, in consideration, I don't know how Ellie would like to receive, through the, okay.
Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I just have one comment. For me personally, my Mondays are primarily Monday evenings. I must attend fire trainings. So for me, making sure that I'm able to be back by 7:30, which is not usually too much of a problem, but just a consideration those days, if there's preparations for the next day, gets a little harder. Because sometimes those go through till late evening.
And I think that this is precisely, and thank you for raising that. People do, and I appreciate people do have other commitments outside of council. Council is not a full-time role. My goal was to try and make this as effective for people as possible. By the end of the year, we will have a good feel for that, and we will have some more group discussions. So I mentioned to Councillor Naylor, any suggestions through to me, thank you. That doesn't just mean it's going to come to me and then I'm going to talk to Ali. I think we need to have a roundtable discussion.
But, generally, Tuesday days, Wednesdays, I think earlier.
Very, very good. I think the manager of democracy services will be delighted to hear some of that. Is there any other discussion? I will put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion is carried. Now we move to item 9.5, page 47 of your agenda. This is the Tararua District Council Code of Conduct for elected members. I'll hand back over to the manager of democracy services.
Scott, this item is for you to adopt an updated copy of the Code of Conduct. I think she hasn't made any changes to it. We could just not adopt one and the previous one to just carry over, but it's helpful to have it in front of members and also available for the public to see, so that you have a chance to have a good read through the Code of Conduct and what the expectations are. The systems improvement bill that the government is currently working on is looking to introduce some change around the Code of Conduct. They're currently looking at the Secretary of Local Government writing a Code of Conduct that will apply to all councils and community boards and would likely have stronger penalties for any breaches. And keep it simple without anything.
Through you, Bishop. Yes, in the local government system improvements bill, which is presently for the House, back when serves on the 18th, that's next week. And my understanding is expected passing through for Christmas. Among the various items in there is providing power to the Secretary of Local Government, that's Paul James, who's the Department of Affairs, to empowers him, the current incumbent, to prepare a code of conduct that will apply to all local authorities in New Zealand. And my understanding is the intention is that we'll have what that looks like, which remains to be seen, but it is likely, in my personal view, to encompass more effective enforcement of house. One of the criticisms of council come up as the enforcement side of it is not as effective as it can be. That said, it's also balanced by other changes in that bill which protect elected members' access to information, in fact, enhance it. So you don't have to get ridiculous situations that elected members have to use the GOIMA to access information help by their own council, which may sound extraordinary, but has happened. And the other being also protections to enhance free speech, i.e. that where elected members have positions that perhaps they got elected on, that doesn't per se exclude consideration matters. So there's a balance to be struck between and freedom of access to information that has been struck in that bill, which assuming the House approves it would be law early 2026.
Thank you, Malcolm. And I think it would be highly unlikely that it would not be approved. The system's improvement bill, from what I understand. However, the Manager of Democracy Services mentioned that legally we are already covered under the existing code. My strong preference is that we do vote on it and adopt it as a team. It sets out some standards of behaviour that we as a team, I think, should sign up to. And instead of it being imposed upon us, which we may have an amendment, which will have some different requirements through the systems improvement bill, as we start this term, I think that we as a team should agree some of these standards of behaviour. Councillor Oswald.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
I have a question.
Welcome.
The first page of the code of conduct, the first sort of things that I see are the three values. I guess during the when I met the candidate evening at Marketing Marae, there was a question about how council are actually using these, and if in fact the descriptions underneath the words are even correct and what those look like as elected members. And for me personally, I'd love to know who sort of came up with these, who created them, and how previous councils have used them in the community, so then I can go back and tell Marketing Marae.
Thank you, Councillor Tuaka, and it is a very, very good thing that you've raised. Interestingly, the Chief Executive and I have had two conversations about this, one of those being yesterday and one of those being a follow-up this morning. So I agree, and I was at the Marae when that question came up. There is some work to do in that space from a governance perspective, and I would be keen to have more involvement as we move forward. But there will be real discussion with us as a governance team about these values, how operations applies these values, but how we as a governance team can apply them with these values as well. And so that we're not embarrassed if we're asked about the values in the community, that all of us can easily explain how we work. So I'm very glad that you raised that comment. Thank you, Councillor Tuaka. Is there any other questions on the code of conduct? There being none, it has been moved by Councillor Wallace. Could I have a seconder on this, please? Deputy Mayor Sharon. No further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Now we move to item 10, which is portfolio reports. I'm not going to ask all of the portfolio heads that have just been confirmed to give a report as of yet. However, this is an opportunity for any councillors to raise any matters from out in the community, any events that perhaps they would like to share, an opportunity to have that added into the council record. Councillor Tuaka.
Just for the youth side of things, in 2 weeks' time, Alison and I have been invited to an event run by the trust in Pahiatua. Tararua, sorry, to go to Pahiatua Antahi. And next week I've been asked to speak at a Year 7 and 8 conference at Tararua College. So it will be Year 7 and 8 in the district will be invited to the college and the kaupapa careers, connections, and I've asked them to speak at that if anyone wants to come. It starts at 10 at Tararua College in the Town, and it'd be a good way to see the year 7 mates, you know, they're sort of looking into what high schools they'll be going to and all those sorts of things. So I was fortunate enough to be asked by one to speak about careers. Yeah, there have been a few kaupapa at the marae happening. There's a wahakura where they make the babies, where they sleep in them out of harapiki. I was invited to go to that through Tiki Te Hawara through work, but was talking to a lot of people like Manahe and the mums there about things happening in the community. I was also approached about Tamaki Media has Urupa, the pastime of one of the rangatira, who lives just out of Hanua. Has Urupa looking at that missing, and a community member has asked whether or not I can see what I can do to get it cleaned up. So haven't brought that to you, so still thinking of the plan, but we're having some really awesome conversations with both the portfolios and other part.
Thank you, Councillor Tuaka, and we can have a discussion about how that works operationally. It's a great idea. Councillor Gale.
So I was able to attend this small Pahiatua meeting last week. And they also talked about a youth council or youth network for the region being set up.
That's what Councillor Tuaka was talking
That's the same. So you haven't mentioned the name, so it's my brain.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just, it is a rural matter, but last weekend I had the privilege of going to the Pongborough craft fair, which unfortunately clashed with the Bad Hatters and Woodville. But this was the first time they've put this particular fair on, and the response to it has just been amazing. So the money that they've raised will go to the community and everybody into the future. But it was a fantastic day in the sunshine of Pongborough with no wind and lots of happy people. So they're pretty buoyant out there, which is good to see.
Any other items? Sorry.
One other item, the recovery for the Hoon. So on the 5th of December, there was going to be a terror recovery group in there. I'm just touching base with them now to see that on that day, and offer my support to help them do some stuff there, volunteer or whatever they need to support them. But to be able to see terror there and be there for the community, that cards. They appreciated the meeting very hard. That was unable to get to production, but I heard back from people about this. It was well appreciated.
Councillor Paula, and I will be attending that event as well.
Yeah, we attended new event last night, district events, which I must commend our deputy mayor. It was out at Armstrong Road, which was a block. That was an Armistice Day celebration. I got to play my toot, and Harvey Sector played his bagpipes. Some lovely sound, but they had it late because, and we also in the morning we obviously did the Dannyville service at 11 o'clock, which other people attended other services. But in general, yeah, these times that we're living in, I think people are starting to realise what was given. So yeah, from the stats that were read out at that service last night, just on 10% of New Zealand's population went to World War I at the time. So that's pretty, you know, when you put it in balance, that changed the whole history of our country.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, so yeah, it was a great reflection, and I think people would really appreciate it.
Thank you for raising that, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the Glengarry service. But I'm very glad it was very well represented by council. So, any other items to raise? Right. I will just move briefly on to mayoral matters. So a few things to update the team on here. Councillor Corlett has talked about the community barbecue in Neriaha. So a big thank you to the Rural Support Trust, Steering New Zealand, MPI, Beef and Lamb, and the Rapid Relief Team, Fonterra and other stakeholders for organising a barbecue for impacted farmers from the severe weather event that we had. Council was represented by operational staff and myself, and Councillor Corbett's apology was noted that, but it was a very effective meeting. It is important to note that there are farmers and landowners that have been severely impacted by that weather event, and that impact will be ongoing for some of them. Hence why there's another event coming up. I do just want to express my sincere thank you to Council's emergency management team. It was incredible to see the way that they operated in an event, and it gives me as mayor some real confidence on how our team operates and how our team works, particularly under pressure. So please pass that on, Mr. Chief Executive, through to the team. We also had the swearing in of the Ekatahuna Community Board, and I'm very much looking forward to the swearing in of the Dannevirke Community Board on Monday. Armistice Day, which Councillor Wallace talked about, I was privileged to attend the Pahiatua Armistice Day ceremony along with Councillor Kennedy and her son, and was privileged to be able to speak and lay a wreath with Councillor Kennedy. Thank you to all elected members that went along to those services. I know it can be challenging during the day if people have other commitments, but it is an important thing for council to be acknowledging the services in those towns and supporting the RSA and their incredible efforts to remember those that fell and those that returned. Also just want to briefly mention that I will be heading to Wellington following this meeting for rural and provincial, along with the Deputy Mayor, which is a great opportunity to start building networks with other mayors. And I'll also be on Friday, it'll be Thursday, then on Friday I'll be attending a Mayor's Task Force for Jobs function, which will be another opportunity to meet with other mayors, but also to understand this important program that's running within our district. So those are my mayoral matters. We'll just move on to item 13. Item 13 is public excluded items of business. Could I have a councillor please move us into publicly excluded? Councillor Wallace moved, Councillor River seconded. Is there any discussion? There appears to be none. I'll take a vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We will just have for publicly excluded a very quick break. 5 minutes for everyone to